Welcome to the Hidden Figures podcast, Behind the Numbers with the Restaurant Scientist. Within this podcast, we take an in-depth look into the economics of the food service and restaurant industry. The show will examine the economic disparities and inequalities impacting Black food service professionals and restaurateurs. We will support and empower Black food service professionals and restaurateurs by providing opportunities for increased visibility, access to capital, and problem-solving expertise. Yes. Hello. Welcome to another episode, Hidden Figures, Behind the Numbers with the Restaurant Scientist. My name is Jason Wallace, and I am the Restaurant Scientist. Today, I'm honored to have Miss Charity Howard, phenomenal entrepreneur. I have the title of the Restaurant Scientist. However, she actually is a food scientist. So, you know, it's an honor to have her, and I want to welcome her to the show. Charity Howard, food scientist, Dope Culinary Reactions. Charity.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to speaking to you today.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming.
Awesome.
So let's just take a deep dive right into it. Tell us a little bit about your background, your professional services that you offered, and how did you find yourself in this lane?
Yes, for sure. So I went to college at the University of Tennessee, and I happened to major in food science and technology. Upon obtaining that degree, I knew that with that, I wanted to do product development, food science, specifically menu innovation, food service innovation within the QSR, fast casual, and fine dining segment. Fast forward, I've been a few places, probably one of the largest chicken chains, based out of Kentucky. I did product development for that menu, a very large burger chain that is not Burger King. I did product development with them for a very long time behind the scenes. So I've always been the behind the scenes girl that gets you literally some of your favorite menu items, the development of it, the strategy of it, what makes it taste good, the manufacturing of it, the production of it, the timing of it, the logistics of it. I'm sure you would agree, Jason. People just don't realize all that goes into literally selling you a hamburger or whatever it is you want to buy from day to day. But it truly is a science, and making sure that it's consistent from the time it starts in my test kitchen in the lab to the time it gets to you in your belly.
Nice. Absolutely. Again, I want to make the distinction because I'm a restaurant scientist at operations, right? Meaning that I'm the guy that's going to come in and look at your income statement, your cost of goods, fixed costs, variable costs, and make sure that you are maximizing your net operating income. Charity is, again, the true scientist that really kind of helps me. And even as a chef, Charity, kind of like, who is your ideal customer? And just so for those that are out, my listeners out there, some of them are, they have sauces or dry rubs or spices or seasonings that they want to develop. So, speak to them a little bit. Speak about each individual. I guess those are different lanes, clearly. Even so start with me. I'm a restaurant consultant. If I am now working on a new restaurant project, am I an ideal client for you? And if so, when I come to you, what do I need to have? So should I say, okay, I want one signature appetizer, entree, dessert, and do you then help me flush that recipe out? So walk us through who the ideal customer is in each lane.
Yeah, sure. So that's a great question. The ideal customer, again, in my career, I have operated on large-scale restaurant systems. I mean, literally 500, 5,000 plus. However, on the consulting side, I've offered my consulting services, particularly within the Black community, to do just that. I have several restaurateurs, entrepreneurs, chefs that'll come to me to say, listen, I have one store in one location, and I make this sauce by hand every day, and I'm kind of tired of it. So
Hmm.
I would like to go into production to scale this up so that it's going to taste exactly like how I'm making it by hand, but I can take that labor cost out of my system and transfer it to production costs for scaling it up with a manufacturer. Or what it might look like is I have one restaurant today. I'm now going to build another one across town. Then I'm going to scale up to build another one in another city. And I'm expanding. We see that often. And that is always the goal of a restaurateur, right? So as they expand in exactly that, as they continue to grow, I want to make sure that if I'm eating at XYZ in Atlanta, Georgia versus XYZ in Birmingham, Alabama, that my customer, my guest is going to get a consistent product from
Hmm.
each location. And so that's where I come in. I transfer those recipes to formulations so that you're not tied to actually doing the hands-on work yourself. Ideally, that formulation can be taken from vendor to vendor, co-packer, production, however you want to call that, to say,
Hmm.
hey, this is what I have. Let's scale this up. This is the amount I need per month, per year, depending on shelf life and all the rest. And let's get a consistent volume going with that. I know when it comes to my store, I know how to store it to keep it fresh. I know where to keep it. I know the usage per sandwich, per menu item, whatever that looks like, and that creates a consistency within all of your restaurants.
Nice, nice. So at what time should at what point in the process should someone come to you? So if, like, for right now, I'm in the process of designing and building out a new restaurant, right?
Yeah.
So I have an idea of what I want on the menu. Um, do I come to you now, or do I get it up and running and then say, okay, here's a menu for my barbecue sauce or for
Hmm.
my buffalo cheese dip or whatever the case
Hmm.
may be? Do I come to you after I develop the base recipe and I'm open, and then we talk about scalability and cost and all of that, or do I get you in earlier in the process?
The ideal time to come to someone like me would be after you are, you've gotten your recipe developed, you're tried and true with it, it works, people enjoy it, and that's going to be a staple on your menu. Absolutely. A lot of times people will do that. They have something that they just know, especially on the consultancy side, they just know it's going to be gangbusters. And then it ends up, they make this large investment to scale it up, and it doesn't sell
Mm-hmm.
they think. So now you put all this capital behind it without validating the assumption. So I would recommend, even though I would always recommend, make sure you're heavy in it, make sure you're for sure, and then as you scale up and grow, that's when I will come in to assist.
Got it. Got it. So walk us through the scientific process, right? From ideation to product launch. All right. So now we're
Yeah.
not in a restaurant. Let's talk about, okay, I have a sauce that I
Yeah.
want to take to Whole Foods or to
Yeah.
market and sell. What's that process like?
Yeah. So that process, man, it's so much. I like to call that what I call like the food innovation funnel. We
Mm-hmm.
always have the largest part of the funnel, and then we condense and go down. People would have no idea how many things, especially for QSR restaurants and large scale restaurants, that do not make it. There are so many tests and so many iterations, even for a CPG product, so many tests and so many iterations and things that may start out one way and end another, or just don't make it at all. So the idea portion of the funnel is the largest.
Mm-hmm.
This is my gold standard. The cost may not necessarily be, down to a certain way, or the packaging may not be 100%, but I know I'm about 80, 75, 80% there on this is what I want to sell. And bigger than anything, the concept. You have proven the concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then we begin to move it down the funnel. All
Mm-hmm.
right, let's test that. Where I would come in, let's say it's a cracker type product that you want to your point, put in a Whole Foods store.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you take your gold standard recipe that you've done and you love and you tested the concept and validated. So how can we engineer cost out of that? How can we make it more profitable? If you may be using fresh garlic, I need you as the chef or the culinarian to tell me, would a garlic powder be a sufficient replacement? Would a garlic oil be a sufficient replacement? So we go back and forth. That's truly an R&D process over and over again. I, as the food scientist, validate you as the chef, validate your gold standard while getting to the profit level and the dollar value that you're looking to get there. From there, we move a little bit further down. And again, we would go into some sort of test. We would get this. Sometimes people want to see that tested in a real world environment, maybe not quite a Whole Foods, but if you can get some sort of contract with a local bodega around the corner or whatever else, you'll at least know how people respond to it. Some people don't feel they need to do that. They say, all right, I want to go straight to the big guy. So let's just keep on moving forward. And either is fine.
Right.
It's your product. So, what we'll do there, assuming you're not going to do any sort of in-store feasibility or proof of concept test, what we'll do there is go straight to the manufacturer and go to the co-packer and say, listen, this is my ideal formulation. These are the raw material ingredients that I need. This is, how much it takes. This is the amount of time. We even get to the specifics of, if I have water in this cracker recipe, what is the temperature of the water that it's going to have to be every single time so that it is consistent?
Dropping a nugget there. That was, I don't know, that was huge right there. What is this? What is the temperature? So she's really talking about, again, consistency of the environment that we are producing this product in so that we could control that environment and know that at the end of the process, it is the same. It tastes the same. The color is the same. The consistency, the viscosity, all of those things are consistent across the board. Wow.
That's absolutely right.
Continue.
Yes.
I didn't mean it, but you said you're saying, so you're dropping so many nuggets. One, you said CPG. What does that mean?
CPG stands for consumer packaged goods. So those are the things that you can buy in the middle aisles of a grocery store. Anything that is put into any sort of packaging with a label on the back, that's what I call CPG. The difference between that is food and food service is something that you would go into a restaurant and purchase off of a menu. You may not see the exact ingredients. You may not know, it doesn't come with a label. It's something that you eat on demand. Consumer.
Okay. Okay, great. And clearly there are additional steps that are required if you're going to go to the public in terms of nutritional labeling and all of those items. All right.
Yes. The government is heavy in that.
Okay. So now you also said one thing I wanted to point out. She also said engineering costs out. So if you follow me on any of my social medias, you know that I'm always talking about engineering profits because, for a restaurant, as particularly when we talk about multiple unit operators, your chain operators, they don't just accidentally end up with profit, right? It's a formula. It's a scientific formula. Again, hence the restaurant scientist. I can tell you there's only 100 pennies in every dollar. So if you want to keep 15% out of every dollar, or 15 pennies out of every dollar, everything else has to be less than that, right? 85 pennies have to go towards all other costs. So when she said engineering costs out, again, that's part of the scientific process that we take to make sure that we truly understand we can control that environment. Yes, there will be a little margin of error there, but in process improvement and Six Sigma and all of those agile thinking, all those fail fast and first, concepts, it's all about understanding the processes, controlling the environment, and engineering a consistent product. In this case, we're talking about engineering costs out that will allow you to engineer profits consistently. So she slipped that in there. She's so knowledgeable. I just want to kind of slow her down a little bit and let you guys understand what it is she's actually saying when she's talking about engineering costs out. Am I correct, Charity?
You are spot on. Okay. Thank you for reiterating that.
Okay. All right. So now we talked a little bit about understanding the process from ideation to product launch. I don't know if you can take a deeper dive into how important the formulation, mass production, that process is.
Yep,
The floor is yours. So talk a little bit
absolutely.
more about
So
formulations. Yeah.
yes, so that right there, I think, first of all, oftentimes people don't understand the difference between a chef and a food scientist. Um, I consider the chef and culinary arts exactly that, the artistic piece of it. You get us the gold standard, you get us this. If I had all the money in the world, if I could have it my way, this is what I would want. Where I come in as the food scientist, again, is ensuring that you actually do get as close to that. And I'm glad that you said that margin of error, because oftentimes when I work with chefs, you're very close to the product. And I, as a product developer, 100% understand and agree. But sometimes, you have to deviate. We may not be able to get you 100% because of cost, because of ramp up, because of scalability, but we can at least get you 90. And if that is good enough to prove, to launch your concept, you'll win. So going back to the portion of as we begin to scale up, as you mentioned, not only the raw materials and the ingredients that make your product what it is, but the GMPs, the good manufacturing practices, the all of the procedures that go behind. When I create a formulation and a specification, I call it the Bible of the product. I don't care whose hands it's in. You're going to do it this way every time, so that you, as a restaurateur or a chef, do not have to worry about nuances. If the plant that we're producing it in today burns down tomorrow, that's all right. You got yourself a formulation and a specification, and we can go elsewhere.
Yep.
All we need is a couple of trials, a couple of pilot plant runs to make sure, again, it's consistent, and that it's at parity with what it is you were selling previously. And we're going to keep right on moving. So that means no loss of profit from your side as the restaurateur and as the chef.
Absolutely. Wow. So you kind of hit on my next question, which was, how do you maintain quality? And you maintain quality because by creating that Bible, right? The formulation. Yeah. And again, as you said, no matter whose hands it is in, then it becomes a quality control on the actual person who's following the recipe, right? Or who's following the formulation. Wow. So let's talk a little bit about the numbers, right? Meaning that, people who have products out there now, they may be, again, making a cookie or a brownie or a sauce or some spices and seasoning. What are some of the startup costs that they should, high level, not exact, that they should expect at each phase of, the process from, again, ideation to, product launch? And then even on the marketing, not exclude marketing, because that's a whole, now that the product is done and packaging and all of that. But do you get involved with packaging?
I do get involved with packaging. As a food scientist, I need to ensure that your food grade packaging is exactly that as well. There's no degradation of the product over time. I do work with shelf life studies to say, hey, if I have this beverage in an aluminum package versus if I have this beverage in a glass or even plastic package, what's going to be the difference in my quality as well, my shelf life? All of those things are extremely imperative and should always be built in to your startup costs, not only for testing and validating, but as well for, the ultimate cost of goods with your product. Other startup costs include just, again, exactly that, ingredients for trial and error. I think sometimes people, again, get so caught up in gung-ho as, I know this is the cost, I know it'll sell it, but once we get to the startup, to the ramp up phase, and it doesn't go the same the first, second, third, or even 10th time, we got to make sure we have those raw materials and are able to pivot so that we can do something different either in the process or in the ingredient to ensure, again, you get that at least 90% of the 100% product that you have. Again, as you mentioned, even in regards to the dollar and cents, a formulation is 100%. Everything is 100% of something, right? Even our bodies, right? It's all 100%. So when you begin pushing and pulling in and out, the 15%, even down to the 0.00015%, all of that matters at the end of your product, oftentimes too, people get hesitant about adding preservatives or things like that, but that affects your shelf life, as well as the amount of times that you have to go into production to sell your items. So there may be a slight flavor adjustment, maybe a slight adjustment on, things that may affect the attribute, but in the flavor attribute, but in the overall grand scheme of the product concept, if I have a barbecue sauce on a barbecue bacon burger, will I absolutely completely dead this barbecue bacon burger if I have to add a little bit of citric acid to keep my shelf life an extra 6 months? Again, for you to decide, but I, as a food scientist, would likely say no. Let's keep on pushing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So factors like, again, ingredients, preservatives, startup costs with the vendors, the co-packers, your packaging options for packaging, your labels, the creative aspects there, not just the marketing, but your ingredient decks, your nutritionals, and even startup costs for your consultants. Eventually, once you have a plan, you need to build out the return of investment of how long it's going to take for this investment for me to get it back. But eventually, when you do it right the first time, you don't have to keep doing it, and then you make your money.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice. Do you assist with distribution and or shelving? Getting slots on shelves or getting connected with retailers?
That is not something, no,
Okay.
that I would particularly assist with in my role.
Okay. All right. So you handed me off to someone to help me market and really execute on the distribution side of things. Because I've heard these horror stories where people will get a contract with Walmart, for X amount of product, and one, getting the money to even get the inventory to even make the product, and then at the end of the day, they found out that they didn't really make any money. Are you familiar with any of those types of stories that you might be able to share, of roadblocks that people may come across to how to avoid them?
I am familiar with those types of stories, again, especially within the consumer packaged goods space. My advice to you there would definitely be read those fine lines in those contracts, that fine print. Know what you're getting into from a systematic level. The same way we talk about 100% in the formulation, those types of companies, they do a planogram, POGs, and they reset them as often as they need it. There's only so much shelf space, so much square footage in a Walmart, a Kroger, or Shop and Save, wherever you want to go. The bottom line is, they have the liberty to, if something is not selling because of the placement, maybe it's way at the bottom or way at the top, not in that strike zone is what we call it, for a guest or a customer to really see and engage and wonder, hey, should I buy this over another national brand or another brand in period. So understand exactly where you are, the risk of that, and then take that risk to decide how much or how little you want to invest in that. Again, if your product's at the very bottom of the shelf, that that may not necessarily be who or what you're trying to target for. But the bottom line is, with those guys, you have to pay to play. So that's another, initial kind of cost that you have to be aware of. And again, they have the liberty to adjust those POGs as needed or not necessary. If it's selling, they'll keep it. If it's not, they'll let you know and they'll pull it.
Right.
So have a backup plan for sure when you're making that type of consumer packaged good investment.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way. I had an ice cream brand, and the freezer space is actually the smallest space available in grocery stores, right? You can have 7 aisles of those middle aisles of, shelved items, dry good or room temperature items, but then there's only 2 aisles of freezers, and one of those has vegetables and the other, all the ice cream. And it was very difficult. And we were in 7 Stop and Shops, and it was very difficult for me to compete with the larger brands, one, because of that premium eye level shelf area, and 2, out of 52 weeks in a year, I had to reduce my price 25 of those 52 weeks because when if Haagen-Dazs or somebody's going, well, Haagen-Dazs really never goes on sale now, but if Breyers or Dryers, which is owned by the same company, decided that they wanted to now offer 2 quarts of ice cream for $8, right, versus 1 quart for $6, I had to drop my price as well
That's right.
to them, because now they're giving some special discounts. So that was a hard lesson to learn. Like you say, reading that
And
fine
then
print.
even being cautious of that store's brand, right? So
Right.
yeah, you have the Breyers, the Haagen-Dazs,
Right.
but Walmart's got great value,
Right.
so
Right.
they're going to always be the adjuster. And that also takes me to the point of seasonality for whatever the product
Yeah.
is. Being conscious of the consumer trends, of when it sells the most, when it sells the least, so that you can adjust your buy and spend, and begin to know what to expect in instances like that.
Right. Are there any common industry ratios in terms of how much of your budget should go to marketing, customer acquisition, distribution, further R&D, research and development?
That's a hard question to answer because again, it varies differently between food service and CPG as
Gotcha.
well. The exact product. Some things sell themselves.
Right.
Discount beverages. People always need to drink, but some things that may be more of a luxury, or I won't even say luxury, but some things that may be more of a niche type item, or only some people like them. Not everyone has to have dessert. Most people are gonna buy some sort of water or beverage. It just depends. It just depends. So that said, if you have more of a niche type item or a non-essential type item, you might want to invest more into marketing, or what that strategy looks like. If you have something that's a consistent and an essential in most households, you may not need to do that. So it's a moving target.
So now let's say that we're successful, right? We've gone through this process. We have a product. It is moving. Do you recommend, and at what stage perhaps even recommend, 2 different lines? Meaning maybe you have a premium product that sells, at a higher price, and then maybe you have a lower end product that sells, at a much lower price. Have you seen that? Do you recommend that? And if so, at what stage should someone consider having a premium line and a generic, for lack of a better word, generic line?
Yeah, this is actually my favorite. I love line extensions, especially being in innovation. Um, Again, I think after your product has been validated for so many years and you are now in the black, and your operating costs, your startup costs have been covered and you're making good money, I do recommend to keep your product and your line fresh with new innovation, whether that be up, down, or laterally. Sometimes people will have the same cost of goods or the same price point, but a new flavor, a new type of item within the same segment. Sometimes people will go up and they will say exclusive, premium, gourmet, whatever that might look like. Plus up the ingredients a little bit. Take the price point up because you already have that loyal customer, and now you're going after another one. Same thing on the way down. When you get to a value customer, that is something where you would definitely be pulling somebody in, but it's a totally different mindset because now that customer feels like, oh, I'm actually going to be able to attain this brand, and familiarize myself with the product, but at a much lower cost. So you would have to, again, engineer those costs out of your product, go a completely different route to meet that guest needs. And let me also say, those are definitely 3 different people, right? I always tell people to learn who you are marketing to, learn who you are selling to, because the person that's going to buy at value is different than the person that's always going to buy at core, is different than the person that's always going to buy at premium. And even the time we're in now, where grocery and food is as high as we have ever seen it, those are things to be conscious of. when you're going into line extensions and deciding the number of SKUs you want to have in your product line. So again, I'm seeing more SKU consolidation now with large brands than I've ever seen before, because they
Right.
simply just don't have the demand for it
Right.
anymore. So there's a time and place for all of it, but I always recommend new innovation to keep your brand fresh, to bring new news. You don't have to do a lot sometimes, but it helps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now you answer my next question too: is how many SKUs? Like, is one enough? And for those who are listening, meaning one SKU, like one product, or do you have 3 or 5 or 7? Like, some people try to start with too many flavors or too many
Mm-hmm.
products, and or not enough to really,
Mm-hmm.
position yourself within the brand. You have any recommendations or comments on how many you should start with?
Yeah. Again, I'd say that depends on the
The
said
category.
product, the said category.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always going to help to start with and promote your base. Even if you start with your base and a line extension, always promote your base, because that's going to be your tried and true, a standard barbecue sauce. If my other SKU is a honey barbecue sauce, then there's always, again, going to be a customer for that. But I'm going to make sure I go after the standards, so that if you happen to see the honey barbecue sauce, that's just an extra wow. That's the extra surprise that you're going to get next time. It depends on the category, depends on the product. And each case would be, kind of vetted out case by case.
Nice, nice. Wow, we're talking to Charity Howard here, food scientist, adult culinary reactions. She's dropping lots of knowledge on us, and we want to thank her for that. So, as we wind down for the last 5 minutes or so, let's talk a little bit about you being Black female in this space. All right.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of those challenges been? How do we get the word out to the next generation of food scientists to even understand and pursue this level of career? That it even exists. Like, how many,
Mm-hmm.
how many Black and brown children even know that there is a food
Mm-hmm.
scientist behind these brands that are doing what you do? So, one, let's
Mm-hmm.
give you a round of applause for that, and
Thank
thank you
you.
for, just being
Appreciate
who
it.
you are. But
Mm-hmm.
two, again, let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges you've seen. How many people of the color do you see in your space? And again, segue into what can we do to get the word out, not only just about what you do now, your company, but how can we inspire the next generation of food scientists?
Yep. So I will tell you now, I've definitely grown up in the ranks of the business of food. Again, I've always been on the back end of the large brands that you see and have in your household daily, within the corporate environment, in their corporation buildings, but as well working with those large manufacturers, the Tysons of the world, who are based in Northwest Arkansas, the Crafts of the world, and all of these large players that you see in the grocery store. That said, often I'm talking about 98%. I am the only Black woman at the table, Black person, but definitely Black woman at the table. And I've had to navigate that space in my career, show up. As
Mm-hmm.
well, show out, be very
Mm-hmm.
knowledgeable in what I know,
Mm-hmm.
come very confidently in being able to speak to what I need as the customer, but also how to, guide that vendor, and also guide and persuade my guests, to educate them on what it is I'm selling. Um, it can be an uncomfortable space for some, but for me, I know that I'm equipped in my knowledge. I know that I'm equipped in my education and my experience. So, claiming that seat at the table
Mm-hmm.
has always worked for me. Again, especially in spaces where I may be in Northwest Arkansas and I am truly one of the only Black people in the building, but you're going to get me what I need every time.
Absolutely.
I'm not leaving here with this. I'm leaving here with something. I'm not
Right.
leaving here without it. So,
Right.
it's definitely, in the corporate food environment, it's a very small environment. And I will
Mm-hmm.
say that too. The food industry is, it's incestual, and there's a lot of people that kind of take, turns at various places. But again, I love this side of the business. Now my title is Director of Food Innovation and Commercialization, and I take that with a lot of pride. I remember what it was when I was, a technologist, and then a manager, and then, all the rest. And now being able to lead in that space and navigate, to your point, in that space, and recruit and retain and tell those little Black girls that look just like me, and little Black boys that look just like me. It just so happens my brother, also, who's 14 years younger than me, also went into food science. I was like, listen, I'm not asking you to do this, but I'm telling you, it's been a very rewarding career for me. So let's look at it. And he loves it.
Nice,
I
nice.
need that. I need Black STEM within this space, so that I have more of a pool to choose from. Because I want these large corporations to see that, yes, there are more of us here, and we're doing it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's give a round of applause. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. We definitely have a mission. We have a lot of work to do. When I say we, us as Black food service professionals in every lane, and we always have to be educating and inspiring the next generation of food service professionals. So again, I want to thank you for that. And it wouldn't have been appropriate for us to have this conversation without including that in this conversation. So
absolutely,
thank
100%.
So, as we wind down, how does someone get in contact with you if they want to hire you for your services?
Absolutely. So my website is www.dopeculinaryrxns.com. Dope Culinary RXNS. You can also email me at dopeculinaryrxns@gmail.com. Get in touch with me directly. Let me know. We haven't spoken much about that, but I'm in the cannabis space and the food space. The food comes first. That's what I always say. And cannabis is just the extra herb on top. So don't let it deter you. So again, my space as a food scientist, as an innovator, as a product developer, as all the things, I always hold that space for my food people, but definitely for my Black food people. I want us all to win from various different angles. So contact me there. Let me know what you need, and we can get it rolling.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Charity. And I want to encourage everyone, if you have a product out there, food truck vendors, chefs, caterers, if you have a product out there, put your plan together, get your base recipes, as she said, and then reach out to her. Throw her some business. And what you're going to find out is you're going to see that there's going to be a return on that investment. You have to put that money in your budget to pay for consultants and experts like Charity and myself. And I know a lot of times we don't see it, or we don't have it because we're working with limited access to capital from banks and investors and things of that nature. But if you really want to set yourself up for success, you have to reach out to someone like Charity. So I highly encourage everyone to follow her on Facebook, Instagram, reach out to her email, LinkedIn, and just, be engaged. Whew. Charity. I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
For answering my emails and responding to me, because I do look up to you. I admire what you do.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're bad. So I want to thank our sponsors, Eat Okra. If you have not already done so, please download the Eat Okra app. Up to 15,000 Black-owned restaurants across the country. If you have a restaurant in your area that is not on the app, you can add it. You can like those restaurants. You can add photos. And for those restaurateurs that are out there, make sure you claim your restaurant on Eat Okra, because you can qualify for scholarships and a lot of things that Eat Okra is bringing to the table from their corporate sponsors. So again, Eat Okra, the app, download it. Follow them, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So without any further ado, I want to thank you for watching and listening of another episode of Behind the Numbers, Hidden Figures Behind the Numbers with the Restaurant Scientist. My name is Jason Wallace. I am the Restaurant Scientist. Until we meet again, power to the people. Huh?